Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Have you ever had a friend that was so toxic that you didn't even realize how toxic the friendship was until you cut her off? Today, I'll be talking about my toxic friend. And yes, I've had a handful of toxic friends before in my entire life, but I'm talking about the toxic friend. I'm sure that a lot of you watching this video probably have the toxic friend that you're thinking about right now. It's probably why you clicked on this video. I'm gonna be telling you guys the story of how we met, of what I went through, of how I cut it off. I think I would need to give a little bit of background about my life before I dive into the story. So I met this friend in college, my very first semester of my first year in college. Before I went to college, I had very recently been, how do I say, removed, kicked out of my major friend group in high school because of a very, very stupid fight over a boy. And that was kind of traumatic to me. And that friend group was an international Korean friend group. So as an Asian American, I always had different friend groups. In elementary school, middle school, high school, I always had at least 2 or 3 different types of friend groups. And one of them was my Asian American friend group. So people like me, people who were either Asian and grew up in the US, or Asian and were born in the US. And then I had another group of friends who were my non-Asian friends, I guess, my white friends, my Hispanic friends, my black friends, and they would all be kind of mixed in together, I guess. So I guess I would call that my American group friend. And then I had my Korean group. So I kind of wanted to distance myself from my Korean autonomy, I guess, until I was in middle school, because I came to America in my first grade of elementary school. So when I first came, I barely knew any English and I was scared. So I didn't want to hang out with any Korean people. I didn't want to fall back into my comfort zone. So what I did was I only hung out with people whose first language was English. So my major friend group in elementary school was a bunch of Americans and Asian Americans. I did not purposely meet any Korean people. And then in middle school, that's kind of when I started to like K-pop and kind of started to develop this dream of becoming a K-pop idol. That's kind of when I started to hop back into my culture. That's kind of when I relearned Korean, because I literally forgot how to speak Korean at that time. And that's when I made my first batch of international Korean friends. And I think this is something that you have to be a immigrant to know what it feels like. I'm not gonna generalize and say people who aren't immigrants don't know this feeling, or all immigrants know this feeling. But I just feel from my experience, this is something that it's more relatable if you are an immigrant. When you're an immigrant in another country, no matter how much you try to fit in, there's always that feeling that you just don't fit in. You're always gonna be a physical minority. It doesn't matter if you have friends around you or your work culture or anything. You know that you're a minority, and that kind of at first it comes off as an insecurity. So I think that's why what a lot of immigrants do is they find the group of their motherland. So if you're Korean, then you find a group with just Koreans. If you're Chinese, you find a group with just Chinese people. If you're Indian, you find a group with just Indian people. And it helps you keep your cultural autonomy. It helps you keep your safe zone, I guess. And there's much more to relate to with these types of people. You grew up with the same types of parents, with the same type of culture, same types of traditions. You grew up eating the same food, same household culture, and that obviously helps a lot in bonding and friendships. And I think this is kind of where I like fell into like the trap, I guess. I was so, I guess, like obsessed with fitting in that I always felt like there was something empty inside of me because all I was doing was trying to fit in. So I always needed like a safe group to fall back to. And in high school, I found that safe group. It was like a huge group, like of 20 Korean international students. And these international students barely knew how to speak English. They were just Koreans. They're literally just Koreans who came to America during high school so that they could go to an American college. And for me, I thought like, I mean, I'm Korean. Like, how different can we be, you know? I can just learn like some of like, the Korean slang, some of the things that Korean people like, and then I'll get along with them like just fine. Yeah, turns out cultural difference is much more than the color of your skin. And I didn't know that until I literally put myself in a situation where I realized maybe I'm not Korean. Maybe I'm not, because I don't feel Korean at all with these Korean people. But I still wanted to hang out with them because I wanted to feel Korean. So in high school, my major two friend groups, I guess, were my Asian American friend group and then my Korean international friend group. And basically during my entire high school period, it was always me just going back in between these two groups whenever I kind of just felt like it. And eventually I found myself like really attached to the Korean friend group. I think it was the second trimester in my senior year of high school. I got in a huge fight with one of like I don't know what you call them. Like there's always like the center of the group. There's always that one or two friends who kind of like made the group, I guess. Like they're the ones that are like close to everyone. They're kind of like the queen of the group, I guess. And basically I fought with one of those friends. And the reason why we fought was because I had liked a boy and she basically like took him. I don't want to say like stole him because he was never mine, but like it's just like the silent rule within like girls. If I like a guy, hands off. Like that's just the silent rule because she was a friend from middle school. There were multiple times throughout middle to high school to my senior year of high school where she would like a guy, he would like me, and I backed the off because that's the silent rule in girl friendships. But no, she decides to, I don't know for what reason, but like during the time that I liked him, she never mentioned like a bit that she liked him. And I knew him first. I brought him into our friend group. He was also a Korean international student and he said he wanted some friends. So because I liked him, I wanted to give him that comfort that I found in my Korean friend group. So I brought him into the Korean friend group and she just goes like, snatch. So we fought. And it's not like I went off on her. What I said was, I feel betrayed because I always told you guys, like, I always told you that I liked him. I told you that I wanted to like get closer to him. And then you go out and you're getting boba with him separately. Like you're playing PUBG with him separately. Like, are you doing that to trigger me? Like, why are you doing that? And she's like, oh, I didn't think it was a big deal. And then after that fight, they started dating for like 2 months. And now this isn't important at all because it's literally just high school drama. Like, but back then, like that was like, it was like mind shaking for me. Like, how could a friend betray me like that? Because she was one of my best friends. And so that shenanigan happened. And with that fight, because she was like the center of the group, I guess, she literally told every single other person in that friend group that I did something that was like so messed up and they should all stop being friends with me, and they listened to her. So I lost that group over a stupid fight over a boy. And with that, I think I kind of like Well, like to be like completely transparent, I was depressed. I was so depressed to the point where after I graduated high school, I came back to Korea for 3 months during the break, and I didn't do anything. Like, I just stayed home. I ate fried chicken all day. And that sounds great, but not when you're depressed. I couldn't meet anyone. I was scared to meet people actually because that's how traumatic that thing was for me. Like, that's how big of an impact that friend group had on me. And I didn't realize until I cut them off that, I actually needed them in my life. And yeah, so I was depressed. So when I went to college, I made it my mission to not make Korean friends because I guess like that group just planted like a bad like prejudice in me, that Korean international students are gonna be a certain way. But somehow, like like the human mind is just so messed up because I literally did my everything to not become friends with Korean people, and here I am, my first semester of college, of my first year in college, and I find myself going to a Korean international club. So how that happened was I was before I went to college, like I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks before the semester started, I went on Facebook to look for some like friend groups, to look for some like clubs that I can join before I actually like start the semester. And in there I found a Korean American club. So I was like, okay, Korean Americans, I like Asian Americans, like let's just go with this club. And in that club, there was this girl, and she texted me first. She messaged me on Facebook Messenger. She was like, "Hey, I'm also a freshman, starting this semester. Our group is like meeting up to like meet some like to make some like tteokbokki. Like, do you want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, why not?" And so I went. Korean American. They need to change that name because not a single person there was Korean American. And I was like, what? Like, I don't want to be here. But, like she invited me, and as a good person, I stayed. I was there, I made some like tteokbokki, and that's where I met 2 other friends. One of them is my best friend right now, and I can make like a 10-hour video on how much like I appreciate her, but that's like for another time. We're gonna talk about the other friend, the toxic friend. So fast forward like a month or so, and the friend who introduced me to that tteokbokki group is, let's call her friend B. And then my best friend right now, let's call her friend C. And let's say I'm D. There's the friend A, and she is the toxic friend. When I first went into that group, I did not like her. I actually hated her because her first impression for me was very, very fake. She was always like linking arms with this other Korean girl, and she was always in like full glam. I think it's bad of me to think this, forgive me, but like her voice was so high pitched that I think that contributed to me thinking that she was fake. Like she would kind of like talk like this, and like it would just kind of like bother me because like, but like that in Korean. So like 안녕하세요, like maybe I'm just viewing her in a bad light because I hate her guts right now. That's just kind of my first impression of her. So I didn't want to be friends with her. But what happened was friend BC, so our school was huge. Our university was huge. And basically, let's say this is the campus, then there's like dorms all around the campus, obviously, right? And basically my dorm was to the west of the campus. So it was like right here. And friend A, the toxic friend, also was in the same dorm as me. She was like one floor higher or I think she was one floor higher than me. And then friend BC were also coincidentally in the same dorm, but on the other side of campus. They were in the north side of campus. So for us to walk, like for me to walk to this north side of the campus, it would take literally like almost 30 minutes just to walk there. So basically what happened was the four of us started hanging out, but within that four, it was kind of like a duo, I guess. Friend B and C were always hanging out in the north side of campus, and then me and A were always hanging out in the west side of campus. And because our floors were like one floor apart, we would always meet to study together, to get late night snacks together, and that's kind of how we became friends. And then there was one day that we went to eat lunch, and she opened up about her high school trauma, I guess. And the things that she was saying was very similar, like almost like 99% similar to what happened to me in high school. Like her friend group just suddenly cut her off because of a stupid boy issue. There was that center friend who kind of kicked her out of the group, and I was getting like major PTSD flashbacks, and because of that we were able to bond with each other. I should not have gone to that lunch because that was the beginning of what I kind of consider gaslighting. So after she opened up about her past, about her trauma, I opened up about mine, and we became very close in a very, very short amount of time. I considered her my best friend within like 3 months of meeting her. And yes, there are people that you meet and you instantaneously bond with, but I find it really rare for those types of friendships to go like a long way. I think it's always those people that like it takes like a really long time to get close to, and then they last like 5, 7, 10 years. I think the reason why I was able to get so close with that friend was because she was like the most emotional person I've ever met in my entire life. And I'm a very, very emotional person. So to meet someone like myself, it was very interesting, I guess. I've never had someone be so open about their emotions with me, and she was always so vulnerable. She was always crying in front of me. She was always like trauma dumping on me, I guess, which at that time didn't know was trauma dumping. I just felt bad for her. I felt pity for her, and I got this feeling inside of me that was like you know, I wanna help her. Yeah, I wanna help her like overcome this trauma. I wanna like fix her. And I think that's the most common mistake that people make. You cannot fix a girl or a guy. All you will do is bring upon their mental issues and literally just suck them into your brain, because that's exactly what's gonna happen when you try to fix someone with a mental issue. And I think the mental issue that she had was, I'm not gonna diagnose her, but she was the most narcissistic person I have ever met in my entire life. And I'm gonna give you a lot of examples throughout this story time that kind of back up my reasoning for why I think she was very narcissistic. So during the first few months that I was friends with her, we were meeting every single day. And it wasn't even like we were just like meeting up for lunch, for dinner. It wasn't like that. We were together the entire day. Like, except for the time we were sleeping, probably like 18 hours a day, we were together every single day for at least like 6 months. And during those 6 months, I found myself being very attached to her. I found myself wanting to do good things for her because I considered her very dear to me, and I wanted her to recover from that friendship loss. I wanted myself to recover from that friendship loss. And I personally felt that because she had approached me first, because she had opened up first, it was kind of like, it was like that action was really important to me, for someone to open up to me first, for someone to be vulnerable to me first. I really appreciated that, and I wanted to show my appreciation for her by doing things that I could for her. Like, I don't know, like I would go to Starbucks to get a cup of coffee and I would just get her favorite menu. I would stop by her favorite dessert place and get something for her. Just like those types of little actions that showed that I cared for her. And I wanted to show her that because she was a good friend of mine. And she was like a very little person, and by little I mean like she was like 5'2", 5'1", 5'2". She was like a very, very small, petite person. She was small and skinny, and she was very feminine. And I'm practically the opposite of that, I guess. I'm not like super tall, but I'm 5'6". I'm not like super skinny. I'm not super feminine. And basically, I think she started to treat me as like her boyfriend almost. And at that time, I felt that this was just what best friends do, because I never had a friend like that. I never had such like an affectionate, like vulnerable friend like that. So I was thinking like, oh, maybe this is like how friends are supposed to be. Like, because I've had such a traumatic experience with my previous group of friends, I was thinking like, oh, maybe this is how friendship is supposed to be. Like, maybe like friendships are supposed to be this affectionate. Maybe friendships are supposed to be about like protecting one another, about caring for one another in such a manner that was almost like a romantic relationship. And just in case you guys are thinking, oh, maybe like I was going through something, no, I'm completely straight. But I think that friendship, like, it had like a special meaning to me at that time. I felt that she was more of like my family than my friend. I felt that she was literally like half of me. And because of that, I did things to, show my appreciation for her. And slowly throughout our friendship, she started to ask for things. So in the beginning of our friendship, she never asked for anything. I just did things for her. And then throughout the middle of our friendship, she started to ask for things. And at first it was very like, oh, like, I'm sorry, but do you think you could grab my lunch on the way home? Like, I'm like really stuck in the middle of my project and I really have like no time to do it. I'm so sorry, but do you think you could pick it up for me? It started with little things like that. And I was like, yeah, sure, like that's not an issue. I'm literally going your direction. So I did things like that for her. And then it became to a point where she was like, hey, like, do you think you could buy like a cup of coffee for me? I'm in the library and I can't really give up my spot. And then she would say, oh, but I saved the spot for you, so like if you come, you can come sit like right next to me and we'll study. So I started buying her coffee. And then we would go to a restaurant together, and she would say, oh, like, I want to eat this and this and this and this. Like, she would order like 4 or 5 menus. And I would be like, don't you think that's a little bit like too much? Like, I don't think we can eat all this. And she would order it anyways, and she would barely eat anything for the petite person that she is. She would be like, oh, let's just pay half. And I would be like, but I didn't even eat it, like. And she's like, no, it's okay, just take it home. So I would start paying half for things that I didn't want to eat, and she wouldn't want to eat leftovers, so she would pack the leftovers and she would give it to me, and I would eat the leftovers. And there's no problem with that, like whenever I go to a restaurant with my family, we always pack the leftovers and we eat it at home. But I think the issue was that she didn't want to eat it, so she gave it to me, and she always wanted to eat something that was like freshly cooked. And it started with little things like that, and then it progressed to, can you buy this for me? Can you get this for me? And mind you, she was an international student, so she barely knew any English, and she was a psychology major. So in psychology, there are so many terms that are like even fluent English speakers can't understand, because they're just like, what even is this word? Because there's so many terms related to the brain and like neurology and things like that. So she would at first be like, oh, do you think you could like help me like translate this? I don't know what this means. And I'll be like, sure, like it's fine, I could do that for you. And then it would turn into, do you think you could watch my lecture for me and then explain to me what is happening? And I did that for her. I was like, okay, like I have a little bit of free time. I'm a comm major, so I have a lot of free time, So I was like, yeah, sure, I could do that for you. And then she would be like, do you think you could revise my essay for me? And I'll be like, yeah, sure, I can proofread it. I'm not gonna write it for you. And she'll be like, oh yeah, of course, I'm not asking you to write it for me. And then it would eventually turn into, can you write it for me? So I started with helping her like translate some words, and then I would translate her lecture, and then I would help her proofread, and then I would write her essays. And then she would be like, oh, I have a lecture at like 8 a.m. Do you think you can come with me? I'm not a morning person. I purposely scheduled all of my lectures to happen after 12 p.m. because I could not wake up in the morning. And her lecture was at 8 a.m. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And she said, oh, like, it's okay. And then she would complain to me for like the next week about how she doesn't understand the lecture. And then she would always come to me. She would always call me and always text me and be like, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? She would send me screenshots of her lecture and be like, oh, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means. So eventually I was so sick of it and I was like, fine, I'll go to your lecture. So I went to her lectures with her. I don't even know if that's allowed, but she would drag me to her 8 a.m. psychology, neurology lectures, and she would be sleeping next to me while I was taking her notes for her. Now, you might be thinking, Crystal, you are dumb because why would you do that? Like, why couldn't you see it? Why didn't you, like, hop yourself out of the relationship? It's obviously a toxic friendship. Why would you do that? It's your fault. Yeah, I do think it was my fault because if I hadn't done all those things for her, if I hadn't like initially been tried to be like an overly good friend to her, this would have never happened. Like she would have never taken advantage of me. And that's what I always felt, you know? I always felt like, you know, like I started it, like I should just do it for her. It's not a big deal. And I think this is the thing with like gaslighting. It's not all just like requests. Whenever I do a request for her, she would always like reward me with like a bunch of things that I needed to hear. Like I needed a lot of like words of affirmation, like from my previous like various trauma, PTSD. Like she knew what I needed. She knew the words I needed to hear in order for me to move. She would always say things like, you're literally the best thing that happened in my life. Without you, I don't know how I would go through about my day. I don't think I would be able to go to college, to keep going to college, if it weren't for you. You're the best thing that ever happened in my life. I always tell my parents about you. And she would always say these things that made me feel like I was the most special person in her life. And I think at that time, like I needed to hear that. I needed to be a special person to someone. And that's what she told me because she knew that's what I needed to hear. Obviously, I know now that she purposely did that. But back then, like, obviously I didn't know. Like, a friend is complimenting you. They're saying, like, you're the best thing that happened in your life. They're saying, like, you're my best friend. You're everything I need. I don't even need a guy. You're, like, everything I could ask for in just a human. If you hear that, you're going to feel like, aww, like, that's so sweet of you. Like, that's how people react. And that's how he reacted. And that's kind of where I fell into that rabbit hole of constantly being gaslighted and not knowing that I was being taken advantage of. So this is about like 1 year into the friendship. I was doing things like, she would tell me like, it was finals week and she was like studying all night, and she would be like, oh, I'm like craving some cotton candy. Bro, where do they sell cotton candy? Why are you telling me that? And she would be like, do you think you could get me some cotton candy? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, run to Disneyland and get you a cotton candy? So I took an Uber for like 40 minutes to another city to go to a shopping mall where they had like a candy store, and they sold like these buckets of cotton candy. They were so expensive. Like, you already know if cotton candy comes in a bucket, it's going to be expensive. I think it was like $20 for like this size of cotton candy. I got 2 of them, so that's $40 plus the $40 Uber ride. And I took that Uber back to my dorm. I wanted to like surprise her, I wanted to treat her because she was suffering so much from like finals week. Mind you, it's finals week, so I had my finals too. So basically, I spent like $150 that day just to get her cotton candy, including like the Uber fees. I showed up at her dorm and I knocked on her door, and she opened the door just slightly, like just enough for the width of the cotton candy bucket. She opened the door and she was like, "Oh my god, did you get me cotton candy?" As if she didn't ask me to get her cotton candy. And she's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you actually got me cotton candy." And she's like, "Where'd you get it from?" And I told her I went all the way to another city to get her. And she was like, "Oh, you didn't have to do that." And she takes the bag and she's like, "Thanks." And then she shuts the door. I think that's kind of when I started to sense something. Like, I started to sense that something was wrong. Something was not going right in this friendship, because no friend would react like that. Like, if you're my best friend, you're not gonna react with thanks and then shutting the door in my face. So after that day, I kind of started to question our friendship. I kind of started to think like, oh, like this is kind of weird, like, isn't it? But I still was in that state where I was still being gaslighted by her. I didn't know that this was like a not normal friendship. But I did start to sense that like maybe she was being a little bit mean towards me. And that's kind of what I felt. I was like, oh, maybe she's just having a bad day. Like, she's kind of mean today. And I didn't think like more deeply than I should have. And simultaneously during this time, there was also like, she would also make remarks about like my appearance. So right now I'm 24 and now I know how to do my makeup. I found like a style of makeup that I like doing. But growing up in a very like educational city, my city was very Asian, I guess. There were a lot of Asian people in my city, which is why I had so many Asian American friends and like Korean international friends. I never like took the time to like do makeup up until I graduated high school. I never did makeup. So the first time I even like bought like an eyebrow pencil was my first year in college. And of course, if you first start your makeup, it's gonna look weird. Like, I had these like caterpillar eyebrows with like a lip tint that was like so red that it wouldn't come off even if I like foam cleansed it. So obviously I was really, really bad at makeup, and I was kind of chubby at that time because like I said, I was going through a depressive phase and I was stuffing my face with everything I could find because I felt so empty inside. I was chubby, I was ugly, I was bad at makeup, and during that time I had bleached my hair. I dyed my hair purple, and then like the color wore off, so now I was left with this like really, really ugly shade of blonde. And my roots started growing out, so I looked like one of those like those egg sushis. Like, I just had like a strip of black roots and then like really like dirty blonde hair. And yeah, I did not look nice at that time. And she would always make like remarks about my appearance. She would be like, "Bro, like, dye your hair, like that looks weird. You look so weird today." And she would be like, "Oh, like, I think you're starting to like gain some weight. Maybe like you should come exercise with me." And she would say, "You're so bad at makeup, like let me teach you how to do makeup because like you're so bad at it." And then like I would try my best to like do what she does. I'll be like all proud and like I'll be like, "Oh, like I tried my makeup today, like how does it look?" And she'd be like, "That's so shit, like you need to learn how to do it again." And then this was like happening simultaneously during the time that she was asking me to watch her lectures for her to write her essays for her, get her food for her, pay for her stuff. And then Corona hit. Basically all of our dorms shut down. They're like, "Go find your own house." And basically our parents were worried, so they're like, oh, if you have to like go out of your dorm anyways, just come back to Korea. So remember B and C? I was still friends. We were all still friends, the four of us, with B and C. A, B, C, D. All four of us flew back to Korea, I think in the summer of 2020. And then the four of us started hanging out in Korea together because we had summer break. Every time the four of us hung out, I would find friend A kind of like pulling me aside, I guess, from the group. She would kind of only talk to me, and we were all friends. I was still really, really close with B and C, but friend A was not close with B and C. So she would always kind of like pull me aside when the four of us were hanging out together, and I would be like, oh, maybe she just feels like uncomfortable with them. Like, it's okay. Like, we can just all keep hanging out and we'll all get comfortable with each other. And I could sense that B and C were also like kind of uncomfortable around her too. And I was just like kind of stuck in the middle, I guess. I felt like in the middle, and I felt the need to kind of like bring them together, I guess. So I consistently wanted the four of us to keep hanging out together so that we can all get comfortable with each other. I think it was around that time that my friend B and C first told me that friend A is kind of weird, don't you think? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, and they said, like, you know, like, she doesn't even want to like hang out with us. She's kind of obsessed with you. She's kind of using you. She's like gaslighting you. And I remember the first time I heard that, I was so defensive. I was like, how like dare you talk about her like that? Like, she's like, we spent so much time together that you guys don't know. Like I'm like so offended that you would consider our friendship like that. And I fought with them because I didn't see what they were seeing. I couldn't see. I was literally like blindsided by all of like the, I don't know what you want to call it, like gaslighting, grooming, whatever. I couldn't see it, but they saw it and they kept telling me. I think from that point on, every time we had like a deep talk, they would keep telling me, hey, friend A is weird. Like, you need to see it. Like, why aren't you seeing it? And they would keep telling me that, and I would keep saying, no, like, you're insane. What are you talking about? I think the remarks about my appearance became more prominent while we were in Korea, because Korea is kind of like, as a society, people really care about their appearance and how they look to others, how they look outside. So whenever I was in America, I would meet up with a friend. We would literally just wake up, brush our teeth, and just go meet. Obviously with a bare face and in kind of like this kind of attire. But with friend A, I would go like this with no makeup on. I would just like put on a hat or something, and I'd go meet her, and she'd be like, why do you look like that? And I would say, I mean, I'm just meeting you. Like, it's not a special day or anything. Like, I just came comfortably. And she'd be like, no, don't come like that when you're meeting me. She said, put some makeup on, put on some nice clothes, and act like you actually want to meet me. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. And every single time I met her, I would have to dress up. I would have to go full glam. I would have to like wear really like uncomfortable, nice clothes. And even when I did that, she would be like, that color looks weird on you. Like, why are you wearing that? Do you think that purple is good for your skin tone? Don't do your hair like that. Don't do your makeup like that. Like, oh my God, like, you look weird with me. And she would make these remarks saying that, like, almost to the point where, like, I didn't deserve to stand next to her because she looked so nice and I looked like a homeless person. That's kind of when I started to feel offended. It got towards the point where I was like, this is more than mean. This is kind of offensive, and I don't really want a friend like that. And that's kind of when I started to distance myself from her. And when I started to distance myself from her, she started to be really nice to me. I started to like kind of make excuses to not meet her. And then she would all of a sudden get like really vulnerable, and then she would started to treat me really nice. She would suddenly like send me presents. She would suddenly buy me stuff, and she would be like, "Oh, I'm like, we should like start to meet again. Like, I miss you." And then I would like fall for it, and I would meet her again, and she would treat me like trash again. I would distance myself from her, and then she would treat me nice again, and it was this really, really toxic cycle of her like giving me positive and negative reinforcement at the same time. It was like so confusing for me. I felt like I was a 3-year-old again. This is like autumn of 2020. Almost exactly 1 year of us being friends. I actually applied to transfer to another school because the school that I went to wasn't like my dream school. It was kind of like a safety school. And I had a dream school that I EA'd to, but I got rejected from. And I was like, oh, I want to transfer there. So I filed my transfer application and I got in. And that school was BU. And I was yearning BU forever. Like, ever since, I think from the beginning of high school, BU was like my top school. And obviously, like, I wanted to go to IVs too, but like I knew that my grades weren't for IVs, my brain wasn't for IVs. I was choosing between my options and I wanted to do journalism or communication. So I was looking for schools and I was like, BU is like my perfect fit. And so I applied to BU for a transfer and I got in, I got accepted. And I told my friends, I told A, B, C, and guess how they reacted? BC was like, like we really don't want to let you go, but it's honestly the best choice for you. You should go. And A was like, how could you do that to me? How could you file that transfer application without telling me and then just decide that you're gonna go to that school? Like, I feel so betrayed. So being the gaslighted person that I was, guess what I did? I didn't go. With this toxic friendship, if I had to choose, like, the one thing that I really regret from this friendship was that I should have transferred. I should have gone to that school. It was my goal for my 4 years of high school, and I achieved it, and I just let it go because of a stupid friend that I met. And that was the biggest mistake of my entire life, because I could have gotten a much better career path with BU than I did with my school. But anyways, I mean, it was my choice. I shouldn't blame anyone. So that happened, and then we were in Korea for 2 years, I think, during COVID. And then I think it was around like 2021, she got herself a boyfriend that she like loved to death. And every single time she would make plans with me, literally like the day before or like the morning of, she would be like, sorry, I have to cancel, my boyfriend's coming. And then whenever I'm home, she would be like, can you come out? Like, my boyfriend canceled our plans, so I have no one to hang out with, so can you come out? So I would always be like her backup option. I would always be that, like, in Korea we call it 5분 대기조, and it's like a 5-minute wait list, I guess I would say. I was her 5-minute wait list. If she called me, I would have to be there. If she said, let's not meet, I would have to stay home. And it got to the point where she was literally controlling everything I was doing, everything I wore, everything I bought, everything I said, everything I did, everywhere I went. And it got to a point where she was controlling me so much that I didn't even realize I was being controlled. I thought it was her advice was good for me. I thought that she was doing it for me. Like, some people like hear this story and they're like you're just stupid, like, well, you couldn't get out of it. Yeah, I was stupid, but I didn't know how to get out of it. If you hear a lot of stories of people who were gaslighted or groomed, you would think like you can just leave. Like, it's a friendship. It's not like you were living in the same house as them. It's not like you're related by blood with them. Like, just leave. It's not that hard. It is hard, and it was really hard for me to get out of it, and I don't know why. I still don't know why I was like that. I don't know how I fell so deep into that rabbit hole that I didn't realize that I was being used every single second of my day for the 2.5 years that I was friends with her. I didn't realize, and I didn't know, so I couldn't get out of it. She would always like come crying to me and be like, oh, I fought with my boyfriend, and then I would like take her side, obviously. I'd be like, oh my god, your boyfriend's like so mean to you. And she would be like, don't talk shit about my boyfriend. So I think gradually I started to kind of distance myself from her because of the boyfriend. And because she was being so like toxic. She had a toxic boyfriend and she took it out on me. And basically every time I would fight with her, I would go to friend C, my current best friend. And she would always tell me like, bro, I've been telling you for like 2 years, like she's toxic, you need to get out of that friendship. And then she would also tell me like, like you're not the only one who feels like left out in that friendship. I also feel left out because you're always like putting me and friend B on the wait list for her. Like whenever we would want to hang out, like you would say that, oh, friend A needs me, sorry I can't go. And it was really sad for us too. Like we were also mad about that, but we didn't tell you because you were so immersed in that friendship that you didn't even see us. And I think that's kind of when I started to slowly realize that I have been putting everything aside in my life for this one friend. And I didn't realize all of the good people around me. And that's kind of when I started to realize that maybe I shouldn't be friends with her. After the summer of 2020, I had to go back to America because of my green card. So if you have a green card, you have to stay in America for at least half the year. So because of COVID, I had absolutely no choice but to go back to Korea. But now that COVID was kind of like dying down, I had to go back to America to reinstate my status. Me, my brother, and my mom, we went back to America and we stayed together at a city near my school. Meanwhile, all of my friends, ABC, were all in Korea. And during that time, my friend A would call me every day and I would have to match to her Korean time. She would always call me about her toxic boyfriend and it was just crazy. Like, I had no life beside friend A. And I think this was I think this was late 2020, I think, that I really wanted to not be her friend anymore. And during this time, we got a mail from our school saying, COVID has gone down a little bit, come back to our dorms. So they started doing in-person classes again. So we were looking for dorms and I think we all four of us made a collective decision that, oh, maybe we should just get an apartment. But I think an apartment for the four of us was just too much. So we were like, oh, maybe we just like split 2-2. So B and C were trying to get an apartment together, and then me and A were trying to get an apartment together. So basically, beginning of 2021, we were all debating like what we should do with the dorms and everything, but I was the only one in America who was able to actually go and make a contract with the apartment. So what I did was I went back to around my school area. I looked around at some apartments. And then I found this one apartment near my school. It was like a studio room. And basically, just to save money, we were trying to stay in like a studio room. But then I told my friend A, I was like, hey, I found this really nice studio. It's like pretty nice. It's a really good affordable price. And she's like, I'm not gonna live in a studio with you. Like, it has to be at least a 1 bedroom. But for me, it was really firm. I wanted to stay in the studio, whether it was with her or another roommate. I couldn't really afford, I could afford it, but I wasn't willing to spend that much money just for like a little bit of extra space. I was only going to stay for 9 more months and I was going to graduate. So I told her like, no, I'm going to live in a studio. And then she's like, no, like let's look for more options. So I was like, so I gave in again and I was like, okay, I'll look for more like 1 bed. And then I found a few options. So basically we had an option for a studio and then we had 2 options for a 1 bed. And basically, during that time, I think I kind of like suddenly just came to a realization that, I don't have to live with her. And I think during that time, I was talking a lot with friend C. And she was also kind of debating because friend B wanted to live in a dorm and friend C wanted to live in an apartment. So they were kind of not coming to terms on that too. So friend B already submitted her application to be in a dorm and friend C didn't apply for that. So friend B was already it was confirmed that she was going to live in a dorm, whether it was with friend C or not. So now friend C kind of has nowhere to go. She needs to find an apartment by herself, but she was also in Korea. So me being the only person in America, I was looking for some places to live. And basically what I did was I just signed the contract with the studio apartment. And I was like, I just signed it and I was like, whatever, like I'm just gonna sign it and decide who to live with later. So I signed the apartment contract without telling friend A or friend C. I just signed it and I was thinking about it, and I was talking with friend C and I was like, hey, I actually signed a studio apartment. It's like this much amount of money and I think it's a pretty good deal. And my friend C was like, hey, like that's like a really good deal. Like I don't need to live in like I don't need space. Like I was thinking about living in a studio too with some other friend. But if it's okay with you, do you think we could live together? And I was like, yeah, of course. What happened was I made my decision to live with friend C in that studio apartment without telling friend A. And basically during that time, friend A was already like thinking that I was gonna live with her and I was gonna do the contract, I was gonna do everything for her, and I was just gonna hand it to her on a silver plate and be like, hey, here are the keys to our apartment. But no, I think at that point I was done with her. I was very, very mad at her for all of the cumulative things that she had done to me, all of like the gaslighting, all of the toxic boyfriend thing, and basically I was just done with her. So I I signed the contract and then I told Francie I was gonna live with her. And then I think like 2 months before we went back, I suddenly told her, yeah, I'm not living with you. And yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I should have given her a notice. But I think I was just so fed up with her that I kind of wanted to give her a taste of her own medicine. I wanted to get revenge. I know it's so immature, but I was only like 20. I was such an immature kid. And that's what I did. That was what I thought was revenge. And of course, she got mad. She was like, why do you, like, she was like, I can't believe you did that. Like, I'm so betrayed. Like, I was thinking about living with you. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I'm in Korea. I have no choice. Like, I have nowhere to live when I go back to America. And I was like, sucks for you. And then I was fighting with her and I get a text from a number that I don't know. And the text says, I'm friend A's mom. How dare you do this to her? How dare you not give her like a heads up after telling her that you're gonna live with her? What do you want us to do now? And she was like scolding me, and she was like, do you think this is like the right thing to do in friendships? Do you think you're making the right choice? And I think that was like my epiphany. Like that was my eureka moment where I was like, what the actual I think when I got that text, I like froze for like an hour and I was just thinking like, what friend have I been, like what kind of person have I been a friend with all this time? And I got that text from her mom and I was like thinking like mom, like daughter, because I can't believe, I would never imagine in 1,000 years a mom texts her daughter's friend and scolds her on what she thinks is the right thing to do in friendships. I've never heard a thing like that in my entire life. Like, I'm still baffled by, like, her mom thought it was okay to do that. Like, and then, like, it all came back to me. Like, all of these little things that, like, friend A was telling me, like all of these things that she did to gaslight me, to groom me, to put her in a little bubble and roll me around like her little puppet, everything was coming back to me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm being gaslighted. I was like, oh my God, she's toxic. And it took me that long to realize that I'm way better off in my life without her. I basically just suddenly cut her off. After that thing, obviously I didn't respond to her mom. I texted my friend and I said, I have a mom too. If I wanted my mom to fight for us, I would have called her, but I didn't. This is a fight between you and me. Let's not involve our family into this. I think that's really inappropriate. And she was like, think about the things that you did to like wrong me, and that's why my mom is so mad. Like, you have to think about your actions, not like blame me for what I was doing. And I was like, wow, like, wow. And everything was like, it was like a panorama of like events that happened in my life with her. And it was like, I was like, wow, I need this person gone out of my life. So I blocked her. And that was it. But obviously, friend B and C were still friends with her. So they kept meeting her while we were during my last year of college. And I graduated 1 year early, so that's why it's only 3 years. I saw her and I didn't want to make things awkward between her and B and C. So every time I saw her, I would just say hi. I would be like, just, casual, just like, oh, hey, like, good morning. That's it. I wouldn't have a conversation with her. And then I think it was the last semester of my last year in college. I was like one of like the board members of like this job searching club. It was a Korean job searching club, and me and friend C were both board members, so we were always like together on it. And in that club, we would have like these like parties, I guess. And in those parties, only like the members of the club can come, obviously. And friend A asked friend C if she could come to the party, and she's technically not supposed to, but because we were both like board members, we were like, yeah, sure, like we can just like sneak you in. And she came to the party, and I think this is where I really believe karma exists, because I have never badmouthed her. I never talked behind her back. I just went on about my life as if she never existed in the first place, because I gave her everything. I gave her my all. So I had absolutely no regret, no remorse for her being alone now. But she wanted friends and she wanted to come to the party. So yeah, so we invited her to the party and she came. And in that party, she had a boyfriend at the time. And in that party, she went around to every single guy and she would touch them. She would be like, oh, and then like, those in those Korean dramas, you would see like girls doing like 애교 and be like, 오빠, like, 오빠 몇 살이야? Like, 오빠, how old are you? Like, oh my god, I was born in 2001. And she had a boyfriend, and she was like flirting. I don't even want to call that flirting. Like, it was bad, but like she was like flirting with all these guys, even with guys who had girlfriends, because she was apparently drunk. But us being friends with her for 2-3 years, we know how much her tolerance is. We know she was not drunk. But we just let her do her thing, like she's never gonna change. And then she went home drunk. Like, I think she took a taxi, like a guy called a taxi for her and she went home. And the next day, I was like walking with my friend C, and this other guy friend, he was like, hey, I heard what happened at your party last night. And I was like, what? Like, what happened? And he was like, yeah, I heard that friend A was like literally like touching all these guys and like trying to flirt with all these guys. And now like everyone in the Korean community hates her. And I could not help but laugh. I laughed for probably like a month. Like, it was the funniest thing that ever happened in my life, because I was so full of angst and I was so full of like complete utter hatred towards her that I was hoping that something like that would happen in her life. But obviously I wasn't gonna like bring that upon her. Like, I wasn't gonna ruin her life. But like, she ruined her own life. And I don't want to say life, that's kind of dramatic, but she ruined her college life at least. And I was graduating like the next month, but she had 1 more year to live there. So yeah, and then so I graduated and I never talked to her again. She actually blocked me on Instagram. I'm still blocked. And after that, she started like doing a bunch of like plastic surgery. Like, I still see her pictures like on her Kakao Talk. Like, she updates her profile, and she's done a lot of plastic surgery since then. She's gotten a lot of tattoos. She has a boyfriend who also has a lot of tattoos. I'm not saying that getting plastic surgery and getting tattoos is a form of like, I'm not saying it's bad. I love tattoos and I have nothing against plastic surgery, but she wasn't usually like a person like that, and for her to kind of like do those modifications to her body, I think it shows that she kind of went through something mentally. I think it's kind of mean to say this, but I think she deserved it. Like, I don't know what she's doing right now. I don't know how she's living right now, but I can't say that I wish she was happy, because she ruined like two good years of my life. She literally ruined them, and she ruined my mental health as well. And it took me so long to recover from that. So yeah, I can't say I wish her well, and I think this is just like a humane response. I think some people might be like, oh, you're still like not over it. But yeah, I'm not over it because she was one of the major people in my life, and she was the most important person in my life at one point, but she was also the most harmful person in my life at one point. So I can't say I wish her the best. I don't think I'll ever forget her in my life. I think for a lot of reasons, it's not just hatred towards her. I think there's also like a feeling of pity, because while I was healing, I was also thinking like, I wonder what she went through like in her childhood or like during her like school years that made her like that, you know? I wonder like what kind of things she was going through to make her such a self-centered, like egoistic person like that, to use people like that to her advantage. I could tell that she was a broken person, and I was a broken person when I met her too. And two broken people never go well together. And I think I broke myself more just to like repair her pieces, and obviously it doesn't work like that. So yeah, that's my story of my toxic friend, of the toxic friend. I think toxic friendships are something that you almost only experience in high school and college. I feel like before that, you kind of forget about it. It's not like toxic enough. And then I feel like after college, you're just too busy literally trying to make a living to even like care about like the toxic friendships. Like, I feel like everything you experience in high school and college are enough to kind of like give you a standard of who to trust, of who to keep in your life, who to remove from your life. I think a part of me is, I don't want to say grateful, but I'm glad that I met her, because through her, I have gotten so much stronger. I have healed a lot. After I cut her off, I have realized so many things about myself, so many things about like friendship in general. And I have learned to respect myself. I have learned to keep my boundaries. And I don't know if that was kind of inevitable, if that was just like an incident in the path of my life that I needed to go through for me to like recover from that, to learn from that. I do think everything happens for a reason in life. I do think that every single person that comes into your life for a reason. And maybe it's just one of those things like that. I think I did leave out a lot of details because I honestly don't remember, because there was just so many things like every single day that she was requesting from me, that she was looking down on me, she was talking down on me, and just a lot of things that kind of like hurt my ego, that hurt my pride, that made me feel like so little of myself. And I honestly don't remember every single little thing that she said to me, because I forgot about a lot of the things and I healed from a lot of the things, which is probably why I don't remember it. They don't have an impact on me as much as it did then. Let's say I made a friend now and then she told me like, oh, I don't like your makeup. I would immediately block her, cut her off, and just go about my day, because it doesn't matter to me anymore. I know myself and I know how to respect myself now. And I know how to distinguish good friends and bad friends. At least I think so. So yeah, that's my story. Thank you for watching another video with me. I will be making more story time episodes because I kind of like going over these things, and I think it would be fun to kind of just give little snippets of my life that I think were very important and prominent to me, that kind of like helped shape and make the person I am today. So I will be making more story time videos. I hope you enjoyed this one. I don't know what I'll be making next, but I hope to see you on my next video. Thank you for watching and have the best day ever.